Story 1. The Man in the Turtleneck. My name's Cadence. I work the closing shift at a small dive bar near the edge of town. It's not a fancy place, dim lights, cracked leather stools, and a jukebox that's stuck in a loop of classic rock. Most of our customers are locals, passing truckers, and the occasional lost traveler looking for a drink and a break. Weeknights are slower than weekends, but the real catch is that I usually work them alone. No bar back. No security. Just me, a towel, and a register. I stay alert because you never know when someone will get drunk and stupid. That's why I noticed him right away. It was past 1 a.m. on a Tuesday when the door opened. He looked around 45, clean-cut, well-dressed in a black trench coat and turtleneck, way too polished for this part of town. He walked straight to the bar and sat down with perfect posture, like he belonged at a fancy hotel lounge, not a roadside dive. He glanced at the shelves and confidently ordered one of the top-shelf whiskeys. As I poured it, he asked if I liked working there. I told him honestly, "Yeah, it's not bad." He smiled, the kind of friendly smile you'd expect from a dad at a kid's baseball game. He talked with me casually, and I didn't mind. The place was nearly empty, and he didn't give off any creepy vibes. But then he asked if I'd ever thought about doing something bigger. That felt a little strange, but I shrugged and said I was happy for now. Then, out of nowhere, he asked what time I got off. That question threw me. He didn't seem like he was flirting, but now it felt like maybe all that friendly talk was just leading to this. I smiled politely and gave a vague answer before walking away to wipe the counter. He didn't push. Just smiled again, dropped a crisp $100 bill on the bar, and walked out into the night. I thought that was the end of it. But a week later he came back, with a woman. She was in her mid-30s, dressed stylishly but a little off, like she was trying too hard to look younger. She smiled too wide, leaned against the bar like we were best friends, and the first thing she said wasn't hello, it was, "You're so pretty." Her fingers brushed my arm just a little too long. That's when I knew something wasn't right. The man didn't talk this time. He just sat quietly while she ordered drinks. Then came the questions. How long had I worked here? Was I from around here? How old was I? It wasn't normal small talk. She was digging. Then she leaned in and told me she ran a private, exclusive, event club, and that they were always looking for young, fun people. She said I could make $10,000 for just one weekend. I laughed nervously and told her it sounded too good to be true. But her smile never wavered. "You should step outside," she said softly. "There's someone out there who can explain it better." My heart started racing. "I'm good," I said firmly. No smile this time. Just then, a group of loud customers came in. Her fake smile dropped for half a second before she turned to the man, and they both left without another word. I told my boss and coworkers everything. We agreed to keep watch. My boss told me he was always 15 minutes away, and the security cameras would help if anything happened. A few nights later, as I was locking up, I saw a car parked across the street. No lights, engine off. I tried to ignore it, but I felt eyes on me. When I drove off, the car followed. It stayed just far enough back to not seem obvious. I panicked but kept calm. Then I pulled into a police station parking lot. The car sped off. Later that week, it happened again. I was working a slow night when the woman walked in, alone this time. I texted my boss right away and tried to act normal. She sat down, smiled, and said, "Thought I'd come check on you." I told her we were closing, but she asked for just one drink. I started making it, hoping my boss would arrive soon. Then I heard the front door click shut. She was gone. I looked outside. A black van was parked outside. Then came rattling at the back door. Someone was trying to get in. I grabbed a metal shaker and dialed 911. I thought about running, but then I saw headlights. My boss was pulling in. The noise stopped. The van screeched off. Security footage showed masked men crouching near the door, waiting for me to come out. Another was at the back, trying to break in. The plate number? Fake. Unregistered. They were planning to grab me. Thanks to my boss and those random customers who came in that one night, I'm still here. But I don't work alone anymore. And I never stop watching the doors. Story 2. The Man at the Gas Pump. A few months ago, I worked the night shift at a small gas station off a quiet stretch of highway. The store didn't get much business after midnight, so most of my shift was spent cleaning, checking inventory, and waiting for the occasional trucker or traveler to stop in. It was around 2:30 a.m. when it happened. I stepped outside to get some fresh air. The night was cold, quiet, and foggy. So foggy I could see my breath in the air and barely see past the edge of the parking lot. Just as I turned to go back inside, I noticed something, or rather someone. A man was standing behind one of the gas pumps. I hadn't heard a car pull up, and there was no vehicle around him. He wore a red hoodie with the hood up and had his hands buried deep in his pockets. He didn't seem to be fueling up or even heading toward the store. He was just standing there, halfway turned toward me, like he was watching. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting for someone, but something about the way he stood gave me a weird feeling. He shuffled around the pump slowly, like he was thinking hard, or maybe trying to decide something. I walked back into the store, keeping an eye on him through the glass. For a few minutes he didn't move. But then, all at once, he started walking quickly toward the door and came inside. He didn't speak at first. Just stared at me from across the counter. Finally, in a rushed voice, he told me his car had broken down just past the pumps and that he needed a jump, or maybe just some gas to get to the next town. But here's the thing, I had just been outside. There was no car. I offered to call a tow truck. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. Just a flashlight. Or maybe you could take a look. His story was falling apart, and it felt like a test. Like he wanted to see how far he could push. Trying to stay calm, I asked him again where his car was. He pointed at the monitor behind me, the one showing our security cameras. To my surprise, there was a car sitting just beyond the entrance. For a second, I doubted myself. Maybe I had missed it? But then something moved on the screen, just barely. Behind the car, crouching near the back bumper, was someone else. That's when it clicked. There hadn't been a car when I was outside. That car wasn't parked there when I stepped out for air. Which meant, they'd pulled up after I came back in. Silently. And someone else was hiding by the rear. My stomach dropped. I smiled politely and said I needed to grab my phone from the back office. Once I was out of his sight, I slammed the panic button under the counter. The alarm blared instantly. I expected him to panic, to run or make a move. But what he did instead was worse. He smiled. His whole posture changed, like he didn't have to pretend anymore. Calm. Relaxed. Like the game was over and I'd lost. Then he turned and ran out the door. I rushed to the monitor and saw him and the second man take off, not in the car, but into the woods behind the station. The car stayed where it was. No headlights. No engine. No one inside. The police arrived a few minutes later. The car was still there, but the men were gone. They checked the area but found nothing. No footprints. No sign of them in the woods. Nothing. And then one of the officers pointed something out I hadn't noticed. The passenger door was open. There had been a third person. The car was towed and the plates were run. It had been reported stolen, over 100 miles away, almost a week earlier. No one ever came forward. No missing person reports. No crimes connected to the vehicle. It was like the whole thing had been a trap, set up just for me. Since then, I've quit that job. I won't work another night shift. Not ever again. Story 3. The Fake Friend at Walmart. This happened just a few weeks ago. I work the night shift at Walmart. It's not the worst job in the world, but it gets boring after a while. Every night feels the same, quiet aisles, blinking lights, and the constant hum in the background. I usually work in the electronics section. It's peaceful there. Nobody really comes in at 2 a.m. looking for Bluetooth speakers or chargers. Most of the customers are truck drivers, night owls, or people just killing time. That's why I noticed him right away. At first, he looked like a normal customer. A man just slowly walking around the aisles. But something felt strange. He didn't have a cart, didn't pick up any items. He was just there. Always in sight. Every time I looked up, he was somewhere nearby. Not doing anything, just watching me. He stood too still, too long. Always just one aisle over or standing by the corner of a shelf, pretending to look at something. I thought maybe I was just imagining it. But deep down, my gut told me something was off. I reached for my radio to call a manager. But the battery was dead. That's when it happened. I felt a hand grab my arm from behind. I nearly jumped out of my skin, but before I could say anything, a cheerful voice spoke. "There you are," the woman said, sounding happy and loud like we were old friends. I looked at her, confused. I had never seen her before in my life. But she smiled, held onto my arm, and started chatting like we knew each other. Then she leaned in close and whispered, "That man's been recording you. Follow me." My heart dropped. I quickly glanced behind me, and there he was. Still standing there, no more pretending. He was staring right at me, holding something in his hand. Probably a phone. The woman pulled me along, and I followed without question. She was acting like we were best friends catching up, still talking loudly to keep things casual. Her grip on my arm stayed firm. I didn't know what to say. I just felt grateful that someone had noticed what was happening and decided to help. She led me through the store, away from electronics, past the clothes section, then toward the back. I realized we were heading toward the loading dock area, the part with fewer cameras. The quietest part of the store. The side exit was just ahead. That's when something clicked. She wasn't taking me somewhere safe. She was leading me out. I stopped walking and said, "Hey, I think we're good now. Let's go find my manager." She didn't stop. She just smiled and said, "Come on, just a little further." Her grip tightened. I looked around. The store was basically empty. I tried pulling my arm away, saying more firmly, "You can let go now." But she didn't. Her smile stayed, but her eyes were different now. Cold. That's when I screamed. I yanked my arm free and ran toward the front of the store, screaming for help. I spotted one of my coworkers, who came rushing over. I told him to call security. When they arrived, the woman and man were both gone. Later, we checked the security footage. What we found made everything worse. The man and woman had entered the store together. They walked in side by side like a team. But in every clip, she kept her face turned away from the cameras. The man's face was clear, but hers never showed. It had all been planned. Every second. She had pretended to be a stranger to gain my trust and lure me out. And the worst part? She called me by name. I never told her my name. I didn't wear a name tag. She knew who I was. This wasn't random. I was a target.